Hvala gospodinu Vlahoviću. Mastercard je od 2016. godine partner Kopaonik Biznis foruma, najznačajnijeg konferencijskog događaja ne samo u našoj zemlji, već i u regionu. I prvi ugovor je potpisan te 2016. godine, a na obostrano zadovoljstvo je produžen do 2021. godine. U ime kompanije Mastercard danas je prvi put sa nama gospodin Milan GAUDER, izvršni potpredsjednik za proizvode i inovacije za Evropu. Pozivam gospodina GAUDERA da uzme reč. Izvolite.
Thank you very much. Dobro jutro. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having us as your partner for the last couple of years, and thank you very much for having me on stage. So, as you heard in the introduction, I'm heading product development for Mastercard in Europe. Earlier, I was heading product development for the Middle East and Africa. And you may wonder that with this name, Milan GAUDER, where am I from, with a Serbian first name and whatever German family name. So I'm a fellow Eastern European coming from the north, from Hungary. So I have been working in this region for the first half of my career before I started my kind of international one. And it's glad to be back always and see the development. So as I said, my job is to head product development for Mastercard in Europe. Well, what does that mean? Of course, heading product development means exactly to answering many of the challenges we just heard in the opening speech and in the video, that the challenges of future, the challenges of change, the innovation, how do we address the changes of the world? And to make this happen, of course, it's extremely hard for you and for us to distinguish what are the things which we consider noise and short-term things, and which are the things which will really shape and influence the future. For us, is to design or define what are the things which will really influence the future of payment, and for you here with us together is to decide that what is shaping the future of Serbia or of Western Balkans. So in this exercise, to really distinguish important things from short-term influence things, typically what we do, we go into the past and we start to decide, start to review that in the past, the big thing which happened, how much it influenced our world today. And I would like to invite you for a bit of a time travel. I know this conference is 27 years old, and I know your sister conference in Davos is 50 years old, so we said this is a pretty good time frame to go back in time and see that which were the major big things 50 years ago which influenced our world later on. So just imagine we are sitting in Davos in 1970, February or now March, and we look back in the recent history, in the previous year, 1969, and we say, which were the major events, the major trends, the major innovations which will shape the upcoming future. And just, if you take your phone and you Google it up this year and you say, what happened in 1969? You will see many, many different important things, many mind-blowing things. And probably you would think there in 1970, spring, still snow out in the mountains, and you would think, yeah, these are the things what I, as designing the future of Europe or Serbia, West Balkan or payment, I should look at. And if you take the top 10 list, the very first one which will come up in every search site will be this. So 1969, August, after 10 years of heavy work of 400,000 people at NASA, the man landed on the moon. As a proud Eastern European, of course, that wasn't the first moon landing because that happened 10 years earlier by Luna 2, the Soviet Union, but this was the first time, of course, when a man landed on the moon. And just at that time, you need to really do the time travel, think about sitting, listening to the radio when Mr. Armstrong said, a small step for the man is a giant leap for the mankind. And really, half of the world was listening to the radio, was watching on the TV, and everyone thought that if a man can land on the moon in 1969, then in 10 years' time, probably it will be like regular flights there. 20 years' time, we will have settlements there. And in 50 years' time, in 2020, we will not have conferences here or in Davos, but we can have conferences on the moon. So the sad reality is that how many people really landed on the moon after this? Altogether 13 people. So it didn't really shape the world to the promise it was of the year. It was of the decade. This was the engineering masterpiece of the whole decade, because it was 1961 when Mr. Kennedy announced that they wanted to send a man on the moon, and by the end of the decade. So it was a masterpiece, it was an engineering miracle, but it didn't really shape massively how we live today in 2020. So what was the next one, which again, if you Google up, probably it will be number 2, number 3, big thing what happened in '69. And it was this one. And you may be laughing that previously I said a big engineering masterpiece, and engineering technology was probably the word in 1969, which today we call digital and innovation. We use these words on every conference we go to. That time it was probably engineering technology. But this was a very important other trend, which if we were sitting there in 1970, March, in the snow, we would have thought that this and the whole '68 generation and the movement in Czech Republic, in Mexico, in Germany, in France, everywhere, will shape the future. Once these kids grow up, or these youngsters grow up, they will create a very different world with love, peace, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So what happened? So this generation did grow up. And actually this generation came into power. If you take a closer look today, Donald Trump was 23 years old at Woodstock. Mr. Tayyip Erdogan was 18 years old. Putin was 17 years old. The Prime Minister of China was 18 years old when Woodstock happened. They were the Woodstock generation. Whether they were there, I don't know. Maybe you see them on the picture. Probably they were not there, but they were growing up in that era. And have they changed the world? Yes, they did, definitely. Is it a love and peace, sex, drugs, and rock and roll? I mean, the rock and roll is definitely there, just on every different interpretation. So I would say 50 years later, this shaped the world for a couple of years, maybe a decade, but it doesn't have a really long-lasting impact. So the next one is this one. Of course, I had to put Brad Pitt up, and all the film lovers and Brad Pitt lovers. This also happened in '69, what the film is about, the Men and Murderers. It shaped the world for just a couple of months, although it's all in the top 10 list. And many big politicians came into power in '69 and '70, like Richard Nixon. Again, it's easy to laugh backwards, retroactively, like the future generation may be laughing on us, on the topics we may discuss. So it's easy to laugh retroactively, but at that year he came into power with a massive win and with the promise of stopping the Vietnam War and to make peace with China. And the Vietnam War lasted for much longer. The relationship between China and the US is ups and downs, and he failed a couple of years later. Similarly, Mohammed Gaddafi in Libya came to power in this year with a coup, with the promise of changing the Arab world and make a united Arab state. Failed again a couple of years later. But let's come closer to Europe. What was the masterpiece in Europe in '69? It was this. '69, 5th of October, after again almost a decade of hard work of British and French best engineers, they came up with this. The first flight was on the 5th of October when it reached the speed of sound, supersonic speed. It was an engineering and technological masterpiece. It was going to innovate, revolutionize, disrupt aviation. But has it? Altogether, 13 such planes were done. And again, in Soviet Union, Tupolev 144 was very similar. That only lasted a year. This lasted 27 years. By today, there's none in operation. What was missing? I mean, again, a couple of 100,000 people worked on this, and really, it was mind-blowing for everyday people like us that it can fly faster. You can have a breakfast in Paris or London, get on a Concorde, land in New York earlier than you took off, and have a second breakfast. So you can imagine the people on the era sitting in conferences, business decision makers. They thought that if we can do this in '69, then in '79 probably we will fly not supersonic speed but hypersonic. And in 20 years, all the planes and aircrafts of the world will be replaced with things like this or even better versions, and that will revolutionize how we do business, because we can have meetings in Singapore and in Belgrade probably in the same day. But something was missing. Technologically, it was a masterpiece, like it was the moon landing. It was impacting the thinking of many people. But things were missing. The business model, sustainable business model, scalability, simplicity, something was missing, although technologically it was a masterpiece. So if you look up any search engine, you will find these things in the top 5, top 10 things shaping the future of the world. And if we sit today here and we believe that the shiny objects, the thing what we hear, whatever conference I go to, I hear about digital will change the future. I hear about blockchain and AI and 5G and whatever. Yes, they will influence the world. But don't forget, many shining objects, any masterpiece, they may be great in technology, but they are missing something. They are missing something simple enough to scale widely and be sustainable in business model. So we have to learn from this. And again, there was one little thing in 1969 which also happened, which is not there in any search engine, and no newspaper at the time reported about that. One tiny little thing which wouldn't tick probably any of the boxes of innovation and technology and engineering of the era. But still, it influenced my life a lot, and probably it influenced many of your life. So did it influence the life of 3 billion other people around the world. And this was this. So you may say, why am I talking about this? This is not an innovation. This was just a plastic card of the era, where the technology was embossing a plastic card. But still, 50 years later, it influenced the life of 3 billion people and 50 million merchants and businesses around the world, and influenced transit operator and government and merchants and many others. So why? What's the difference? Why? How come that this was not even mentioned in a newspaper while the previous 5 were the top thing of the world? Because as I said, sometimes we are distracted, sometimes we are confused by shiny objects, what short-term thing, what engineering masterpieces, but we miss to understand that engineering masterpieces is useless if it's not sustainable economically. It doesn't have a business model which is able to grow in partnership in an inclusive way, and it's not simple for the end user, for the consumer to pay or to get. Moon landing wasn't easy for a consumer to get. Concorde wasn't easy and simple to get. So innovation, lasting innovation, is not always shiny and not always great. If you take a look how much this logo changed in 50 years, not much, almost the same. Innovation is not about complication. Innovation is about impact. So if I zoom a little bit in, how does it change our thinking when we try to design the payment of the future, try to design economy of West Balkan or Serbia or Europe? We need to adopt the thinking and get closer. So let's get closer, zoom in to what happened in here, this part of Europe, and somewhat closer in time. What I haven't mentioned to you, I did live in Serbia, in Belgrade, in 1999. And I remember payment experience at that time. It was just 20 years ago. I get my salary in Deutschmark somewhere in old Belgrade. I went to the bus station. I heard the sound, zzz, devisa, devisa. I went, I exchanged. I went to, it reminds you to those ties, don't it? And I went to the bus and I paid for my ticket with the exchange, devisa, devisa. I bought my bus ticket. I went home to New Belgrade, to Boulevard Lenin, and I rushed to the shop to buy as fast as I could with my dinars. And I came back 20 years later, this Friday, and I landed, I went to the city, and I went to the bus. Same bus station, there's no zzz anymore. I went there, I get on the bus, I took my watch, Apple Watch, I tapped against the reader, it beeped, and I was riding. 20 years in Serbia, from exchanging Deutschmark at the bus station to tapping my phone on the bus and be able to travel. That's simplicity, that's scalability, that's an innovation which matters for everyday people and not just for the few who can afford. So in this 10 years, I said, I'm going back 10 years in Central Eastern Europe. Central Eastern Europe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, anyway, a decade ago, was a land of cash. Was a land of everyone paid it with cash, because that was king, that was faster. The card, Mastercard card, was like all around Europe, all around the world. It was a Maestro branded card. How did we pay? We paid with this beautiful machine, you may remember that, or we paid with a Max Stripe, you swipe the card. And innovation was just playing with the shape of the card, have like a roundish corner. And what did it cause? Of course, it caused long lines, because if you stood in a line at the supermarket, Mercato, when I was queuing up for the oil and sugar, of course, if anyone would dare to take a card, the crowd would have give hard time to the person, because it was slow, it was complicated, cash was king, cash was much faster. So what did it result? Of course, everyone just used the card to withdraw cash. And not just in Serbia, in Greece, in Ukraine, in Poland, in Hungary, and in all Central Eastern Europe. This was the landscape only a decade ago. So what did happen? As I said, coming back 10 years later, we have a business model where a transit company in a city like Belgrade can partner up, can join a cooperation where Apple is part of, an issuer, my issuer bank in UK or in Hungary is part of, Mastercard is part of. There is a long chain of players coming together and working together to provide a user experience which is so simple, like coming into this room in the morning and tapping your card and hearing this beep, and then the transaction is done. Safe, simple, scalable thing. So I don't want to go through all these things, but if you can be extremely proud what you have achieved in the last 1 decade or two, from this is Devisa at the bus station to tapping on a bus, making online transaction, e-commerce transaction, traveling around the world, be able to use your card in a safe and secure way, paying, moving from Max Stripe to chip technology, from chip technology to contactless, from contactless to paying with a watch or with a wearables or something like that. It's a massive change, and all this happened in 10, 15 years. Probably 10 is the right number. So you can imagine that economic growth is kind of a long thing to catch up with Western Europe. In payment, Central Eastern Europe not just caught up with Western Europe like Germany or Austria or Switzerland, but it's ahead. And it's ahead not because these are richer countries today. I mean, not that Eastern Europe is richer than Germany or Switzerland or Austria, but Eastern Europe was the ground for receiving everyday innovation. Not moon landing, not shiny objects, but something which is so simple that everyone said is so intuitive that my mother, 72 years old, adopted paying with a card, tapping, or with a phone instantly, because it's a no-brainer. So Central Eastern Europe and Serbia can be extremely proud that it overtook the countries with kind of richer people and societies, because it was hungry for simple innovation for the people. So how does it influence the future? Of course, now we are sitting here, we are proud, that's a great thing to be proud, but okay, how will we shape the future? How will the future look like? And of course, my simple answer is that I have no idea. Like looking back from 1969, probably 1970, I would have gone with the crowd and would have said, oh, Concorde and moon landing and the Woodstock Generation will shape the future. And I would have been very, very wrong. So it's extremely hard to predict the future. The only thing what I want to remind you, don't be distracted by shiny things, because sometimes they are just noise and sometimes they are short term. Try to focus on something what is scalable for people and is simple and has a sustainable and open business model. Mastercard has an open business model that it could welcome banks, merchants, mobile operators, and many others to be part of an ever-growing ecosystem and clean out the world from cash. And of course, nowadays it would be fashionable to say that electronic payment is also more hygiene than cash, but it has many other advantages in terms of changing cash to card. And there is a long, long way to go, because still 85% of the payment in the world is cash. And also there is a big room in Central Eastern Europe to grow. So how will the future look like? Again, as I said, I cannot tell you. I can add building blocks about what we are sure that consumers want to have. And these building blocks says that, sorry, just a second. Building blocks, ladies and gentlemen, revealing what we believe that are building blocks, what the consumer wants, are super simple things. They want to decide when they want to pay. They want to decide whether they want to pay now, they want to pay later, they want to pay in installments, they want to pay, especially in the e-commerce environment, when the product arrived, they just want their account to be charged at that time. They want an intuitive, safe, and secure time of payment. They want to decide how they pay. Yes, and all is kind of central to mobile phones and others, because of all the reasons my mobile will become much more safe and secure. They want to decide whether they hold their phone and they tap it against a bus reader or a shop anywhere. They just want to click it in an application and pay. They want to say, hey, Alexa, I want to buy a flight ticket to Belgrade. Or they want to scan a QR code. Because, of course, phones, the good thing with phones versus plastic cards, the phones have cameras, have antennas, have many things to do payment in many different ways. And the list goes on. This is what we already know today. This will keep on enriching and growing. But these are all intuitive, just a move, just a talk, just a scan. Intuitive, it's very easy for people to adopt. And how they want to authenticate themselves, that's important for, again, security. How they want to authenticate themselves. They don't want PIN codes, they don't want passwords, they want 10 characters, small letter, big letters, and tricky letters. They want something simple, which is as safe as all the other old technology. They want a face recognition, a fingerprint reader, a voice recognition. And they want value-added services, so they want to know how their spending is split, where how much they spend on everyday food, how much on restaurants, how much on travel, and so on, because they can use the payment anywhere. They want to be able to split their spending when they go out with friends on a weekend in Belgrade. They want to split up who paid how much and who should pay how much in a simple click of a button. They don't want another application for it. They want open banking. That's, again, a big thing shaping the next couple of years in Europe and around the world, is that when you have 2, 3, 5 bank accounts, you just want a consolidated view. You want a simple view, and you want competition of the banks for you. You want rewards, benefits, loyalty points. You want to be able to access fast track at the airport and many little benefits at one place with your application, with your phone, with your wristwatch. And you want security, first of all, but you don't want to bother about that. You want that to be a given thing by your bank, by your central bank, by your Mastercard, by whoever. You don't want to bother about security, whether that's a card transaction, tokenized, whether that's a bank transfer. That's not your problem. That's our problem to solve. And again, you want, wherever you travel, peace of mind. Whatever currency you use, whether you transfer money or you pay at the shop, you want simplicity. People just want 3 things. Things should be super simple, super intuitive to use, and they adopt that. That's one thing. These are a lot of logos, a lot of pictures on a slide, but for the consumer, it should all be just one click away and simple, intuitive way to understand. And that's where we often fail, of course. The second thing they want is security and safety. So they don't want to bother with anything. I mean, you see this coronavirus thing. I mean, people don't like risk. They don't like something what is out of their control. The same with payment, same with e-commerce. They just want to be secured by their central bank, by the ministry, by their bank they trust, or by a company like us whom they trust. They want someone to take care of security because that's the thing they don't want to bother about. Because the only thing which they eventually care about is the experience. It's the experience, what they get through being in a secure world and payment being invisible. They just want to enjoy what they buy, what the experience they get into. They just want to enjoy their time with their family, their beloved ones, and they don't want to bother about payment, banking, regulation, and other stuff. That's our thing to solve. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, what I said in this short 20-25 minutes is watch out when you predict the future with taking the mainstream, the most shiny, the most visible trends and phenomena on the world. Think always that whatever you do should be simple, should be scalable, and should be secure. And with that, thank you very much.